I'm going to
Adjourn. Yay.
I'm going to adjourn. Let's wrap it up. 5:05. We had two meeting minutes to review. Correct? Or is it just, it's the two. Were there any questions or concerns about either of those that we received?
They look good to me.
Good?
Yep.
Great. So we'll accept those and go to our first item, which is a contract approval for, it's been budgeted. Right? Yes? Yes. It's included in the budget. Overhead door replacement project?
I looked at the packet and the only thing is it's expensive.
Yes.
Everything's
Right.
expensive.
Yes, it is.
Nothing's cheap anymore.
Nope. Eggs have gone up. Were there any questions? Did you have a chance to take a look at the details here? We have the two Binghamton group and then the Oneonta, right?
Right.
They're the
Two bids.
right, two
There's a
bids.
formal bid process, and we're recommending the award to the low bidder, Oneonta Garage Doors. We've worked with them before.
I'm trying to get up on my computer. I kind of remember that. I forgot to print the stuff up. That's for down at the DPW.
It's a
Garage, correct?
transit garage, two doors at the transit garage and two at the central garage. So
Okay.
that L-shaped building on the right as you come
Oh,
down the hill.
Should I go on, Scott, or did you?
Yeah, no, that was the answer. I was just
Okay,
trying to
great.
remember.
So we can move that to the consent agenda, and then the next is a equipment purchase approval for two DPW container bodies. Is that the description?
Right, so these are two of our existing container trucks, so this is just replacing the container itself, two of them.
Right. Also budgeted.
Correct. This is coming from the Highway Equipment Reserve. It's included in the 2025 adopted budget. The way we've typically handled any purchases that are coming out of reserves is even though they're budgeted to come out of the reserve, we bring it back to council to get a motion to authorize that use of the reserve. So it's kind of a, we're doing the same authorization twice, once in the budget process and again when we actually go forward with it. And in this case, the total amount, $8,996, doesn't require a formal bid, so this is just based on quotes.
How does the money get into the reserve account?
Council authorizes to put it in there. Usually that happens at the end of a budget year. If there's a surplus, then there might be a recommendation to dedicate that money, put it in a restricted reserve, or split it amongst several restricted reserves. Jenny, we typically have done that almost every year.
Where does it originate? The money originate from? Is that
It will originate from surplus that results, be it that we received more revenues, for example, sales tax than we had originally anticipated, or we've got savings mainly because of vacancies.
what was that last part?
Or we have savings, which usually is mainly because of vacancies.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Scott, did you have any questions about that?
I did not.
The containers? Okay. So we'll move that to the consent agenda as well, since that's also a budgeted item, and we can move on to the equipment purchase for the water treatment. This is the turbidimeter.
You know what the bidder is?
I do. I vaguely remember us discussing this in the tour, right? Did we talk about the turbidimeter?
I imagine it's something
I
that
think
Scott pointed
so.
out.
Yes,
Yeah, I heard you talked
yeah.
about turbidity generally.
Yes.
The issue that we address through the treatment process. So this is something where we had budgeted to use $10,000 for the replacement of a couple of actuators for valves. Actuators mean they control the valve automatically. Rather than replacing those two actuators, Scott would like to replace this turbidimeter. He thinks it's a higher priority now, so the the actuator project would be deferred until 2026 to do this instead.
Okay.
So that's why, because if you were to look in our adopted budget toward the back, there's the equipment replacement schedule. This would be listed on there. That's the 2 actuator valves being replaced. Anything that's on that in our equipment replacement plan, we want to make sure that if we're doing something different than that, we just inform you. Because it's only $7,000 and it's not coming from reserves, there's no need for a council motion to do this. We just wanted to inform you and see if you had any concerns or questions about it. So, if the end of the year we look back and say, on our equipment replacement schedule, what did we do, what didn't we do? We wouldn't have a reason as to why we didn't replace the actuators and instead we replaced the turbidimeter. So if you guys are okay with it, the Finance and HR Committee, then that's really all we're looking for. It doesn't require council action, but you could always discuss it further with them if you felt it.
So this is actually a bit less, the turbidimeter is a bit less
Right.
in terms of the budget.
Yeah, I'm good with it, just make sure you put a note on it, so when
Yeah.
somebody tries to question it, maybe we wouldn't question it.
Yeah. If someone does, you can look back to the form and
Right.
there you go. We talked
And
about
there's
it.
even a definition of what a turbidimeter is.
Sounds like
Even
something
more
you use to
Say
go
that
fishing.
3 times.
I'm not going to. Okay, so we'll move back to the consent agenda, and I think this is our last DPW contract approval for the Interceptor.
Yeah, this is a police patrol car replacement, budgeted. In this case, it would be coming out of the Public Safety Reserve. The contract amount of just under $50,000 is actually piggybacking on a Onondaga County bid. So we didn't do our own separate bid here. It's just another government agency that we can piggyback on to purchase the vehicle. So the action needed would be a council motion to approve the use of the Public Safety Reserve and authorize a contract with Van Bortle Ford.
How many vehicles does the police department have?
I can look that up to see exactly and make sure I don't misquote it.
Question? No?
And,
Oh, it looked like you were about to ask.
and
Oh,
I imagine there's
that
a
format was.
plan where they're replaced so often. How does that work?
So police cars are every 5 or 6 years at most typically, depending if it's marked or unmarked, It's been a 5-year replacement schedule is what we've been doing. We have a total of 16 pieces of equipment that are assigned to the police department, I believe. They're not all police cars, like lights and sirens, some of them. One of them is the SRT vehicle, which is the big box van style vehicle.
I've been in that.
There's a speed trailer, which
What
is
was
a
that
small,
thing?
a speed trailer, that I think we're actually getting rid of if we haven't already. I
What's
should
a
say.
speed trailer?
It's the trailer that we would pull around that has the radar feedback,
Oh,
tells you
right.
your speed,
Mhm.
but I think we actually might have gotten rid of that.
Because they have those things on the cars now, right?
Right, that would be more to.
We have those boxes that we're doing the study with, that we hang up on the pole now.
Mm-hmm.
This would be
Versus
more
the
to,
speed trailer.
if you have an issue, you put it out there and it tells people
Yeah.
your speed, so.
Oh, I got you, okay.
But again, I think we're getting rid of that because we have a different way to do studies. Yeah, so,
So how many patrol cars are there?
how many patrol cars? There's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10, and some of them are patrol, some of them are unmarked.
The reason I ask was, I've gotten 2 tours of the public safety building, and I think there were 3 police cars in the bays, and the chief was talking about, he needed a new car or something like that. And I said, well, how many cars are out on the road right now? And there was 1. It was in the middle of the afternoon, I guess. And it seems like a lot of cars. And I don't think we ever have like 6 or 7 officers on patrol at once.
Not typically. Not typically.
Yeah. I don't know, it seems like a lot of vehicles. I'm not saying no, I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
it's a lot of cars and they're expensive.
So we're just
Right,
getting
Did
one
you have
on
questions
reserve or
about-
2?
Sorry?
We're getting one out of reserve or two?
Two, but right now, we're talking about one. The other one, we're still getting pricing on.
And that's the is that the unmarked car? The unmarked
I
vehicle?
think this one
This
is
one's marked.
Yeah.
So the one that you're still looking for is the unmarked?
Correct.
Okay.
We have four that are assigned to the detectives. 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5 patrol. There's a chief's vehicle. And there's a couple of undercover vehicles. The SRT truck.
And during the 4th of July and some other special events, I noticed they use a lot of them, Don. They just don't sit there. I mean, they are being, and they're rotated through to help keep mileage down.
Yeah,
Mhm.
wear and
So,
tear.
Okay. I know just outfitting them is expensive, and then buying them is like $60,000 or something.
This one is just under 50
Yeah.
for the vehicle, and then there's upfitting.
Right, like $20,000 in
We just
upgrades or
awarded a
something.
contract, was it about $26,000, Jenny, for, that would be upfitting two.
Uplifting costs.
13,000 each, so.
20, almost 20, yeah, 26 it
Yeah.
says here, yeah.
Did we take anything out of the public safety reserves this year?
This year so far?
Fire truck, right?
Or you mean
For
last year?
For 24 or
Yeah.
25?
25.
This is coming from the reserve, public safety reserve.
Wait, I was just wondering if we took something else out.
Oh, additional?
Yeah.
The 2 police cars for 140,000, portable radios for the fire department, just over 50,000, communication upgrade for 150,000, and the safety building, building needs assessment for 50,000, so it's a total of 390,000. Right, it was 26,000 apiece for the outfit.
Oh, each.
When we bought the other fire truck, because we're waiting for the other one to come from Cooperstown,
Yes,
that one, come out of
that was in 24,
24,
yeah,
but it came out of the reserve.
yes.
So how are we, because that was an unexpected expense that we took out, how's the reserve looking?
I don't have an updated number for you at this time, but I can get it for you.
I'm good with passing it up, I was just curious about the reserve.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's all.
Just to get a new number?
Yeah.
Yeah, updated number, yeah.
So I would recommend that the police car goes to discussion just so the council can be informed. Is that okay with you?
Guess so.
Is it? Scott doesn't care?
Doesn't matter to me.
I mean, it's just a.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
Unless
fine
you
with
want to
that.
mention it specifically in your.
I mean,
remarks.
sure. It's just that then we have to, it's a process to read it out and so forth, and it seems pretty straightforward since this has been budgeted.
Okay, I mean, but I think
So-
you should mention it then,
Yeah, sure.
the price and why it's, the schedule, it's on the schedule.
Yeah, I think the piece that I was curious about is that this is the marked one, and then when the unmarked car would be purchased, I would assume soon. Is that correct? The unmarked is like in the next couple months?
Yeah, probably would relatively soon.
Yeah,
Charlie told me this week he's still working on getting the pricing for it.
the unmarked one. Okay. So I don't care, I mean, discussion, consent, I don't,
I'm kind of indifferent.
yeah, I think, because it's been budgeted, I'm okay with
Yeah,
putting it to consent.
I'll go, as
Yeah.
long as I think you mentioned it.
I will mention it.
Thank you.
Yes. My next item is, or the next item on the agenda is this urban forestry program from the DEC.
So this is something that the city would not be applying for this grant. This would be the Upper Susquehanna Coalition applying for a grant for not just the 2 city properties that are in the town of Oneonta in our watershed areas, up on East Street, on the left-hand side of the road as you're going up East Street, just a little bit past the lower reservoir. They're vacant parcels, sort of brushy area, not a wooded area, areas that we'd like to reforest. So that's the purpose of the program, is community reforestation. So there wouldn't be any cost to the city for the matching, a match to the grant or anything like that. The Utica, or not Utica, the Upper Susquehanna Coalition would be applying for the grant if they get it. It's not just for these properties, it's several, I don't know how many parcels throughout their area, so in this county and adjacent counties that they'd be applying for. It's a New York State DEC grant program. So our role in this is, in this case, we own these two properties, and we would be authorizing them to go on there and plant new trees. Our role after they do the planting, if they're funded, would be to do some maintenance for the next, first 3 to 5 years or so. Not like we're mowing a park, but once or twice a year, I think we want to go through, mow the areas just to keep the vegetation down, so there's not as much competition for the new trees, which would be bare root, small plantings. So they need a few years before they grow up and develop a canopy, and then at that point, nature takes its course. So it would be, a major ask for our Public Works Department to do that. The advantage to the city is all the advantages of reforestation, obviously in our watershed, and help limit runoff and that kind of thing.
So these would be little trees?
Yeah, when they plant them 1 or 2 feet tall, very small, I think they would plant around 500 per acre, the bare root trees is what they said. The Otsego County Soil and Water Conservation District would be partnering with the Upper Susquehanna Coalition to actually do the plantings and procure the contractor to do the plantings, make sure everything is done according to the grant program specs. So we wouldn't really have an active role in planting anything. They approached us, the Soil and Water Conservation District did, to talk about actually different properties in the city, which then we, through that conversation, settled on these two as we thought good candidates for the program.
Just curious about the maintenance. Are these areas, up by off of East Street, correct? Yeah. Are they maintained by the city anyway, or is that something that this would be kind of extra?
They may have been brush hogged once in a while in the past. I don't know that we've done that recently, but we don't really do much with them now.
So it's minimal now.
Yeah.
But this would mean a little additional maintenance
For
the
a few
purposes of
years,
this
yeah, after they're
program.
planted.
Right, but it would be probably not exceed 5 years then.
That's what we're told, yeah.
Yeah.
Once the canopy forms, and then they're not
3 years.
fighting with weeds and other things to grow.
Right. Oh, I see. Will be cut after 5 years. Okay. But it sounds like, given that there's no watering or pruning required, that it's really just taking care of the mowing area.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be that extensive anyway.
Yeah.
Any questions about
No.
this program?
Free trees?
Free trees. So what we would need to do then is commit to this, to permit this, and then allow access. So the council's role in this would be to approve.
Yeah, I've written a resolution that would be on the agenda that the council
Resolution?
approve.
Okay.
Ultimately, what that does, says we're supporting the project, we're allowing them to come on our property to do this if they're awarded the grant, and, the mayor would send a letter of support that they would include with their grant application. That
Okay. Did you have any questions, Scott?
No,
Yes?
I'm
No?
good.
Okay. All right. I'm just wondering, we should just have a little bit of a discussion as the council about this.
That would be fine.
Okay. So I'm gonna actually move that to the discussion agenda just in case there are any questions from other council members. Okay, so our next item, if there aren't any more questions about the urban forestry program, then the next item is on the take-home vehicle use policy. So I just think maybe we should kind of look in detail at this. It's been prepared for us. Because it's more extensive than our previous discussion.
Right.
Did you have a question?
No, I was hoping Scott was gonna ask something,
Oh.
because you've had opinions on this in the past.
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot. I mean, we could just start by looking at, if you have a copy of it.
I do, I got it in front of me, I just,
Okay, great. So we have the previous or the current policy, I should say, not the previous. The current policy, which we've looked at before, that specifies the 5 department heads that currently have access.
they're not all department heads, and, well, of the ones that are that we actually have. The fleet operations manager does not have a take-home vehicle.
Okay.
Although that is a department head position. The fire and police chief are department head positions who do have a take-home vehicle. City engineer is not a position we have filled right now, and the general supervisor is not a department head, but it is a position that we have filled, but does not take a vehicle.
Okay. So that's the status at the moment.
The
And
current-
then, so if we take a look at the purpose of the policy, to ensure that employees who may be required to respond to emergency or time-sensitive incidents outside of normal work hours can do so efficiently while maintaining accountability and responsible use of city resources. And then we have a description of the criteria for those who
Mhm.
are eligible,
Right.
which I think is really helpful.
Yeah, I read through that. I didn't, I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion about it because I don't know enough about these things. When the fire chief was talking about why he wanted to have the car,
Yes.
all of that was new to me. I thought, like the chiefs had to live in the city, so there's a lot of issues, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, yeah. I think what's helpful is that there are examples here of incidental personal use that are specified. So it's not just sort of a general description, but there are specific cases here where it could be allowed.
Personal use allowed?
So what that reads is,
You want me to read it?
I can read it too.
Okay.
Read it.
Oh, yeah,
Please go ahead.
yeah.
Okay.
After you.
So, it mentions in the eligibility criteria that, let's see, employee does not use vehicle for personal purposes except incidental use directly related to official duties. So, included some examples of incidental personal use related to official duties. Stopping for a meal while in transit between emergency response sites, picking up or dropping off official documents or equipment while commuting, parking the vehicle at a public location, example, grocery store, pharmacy, briefly while en route to or from an on-call assignment. So, yeah, I mean, the intent is that there's no, you're not gonna use this vehicle to go do personal errands and that kind of thing, but there's these sort of quasi-personal incidental uses that you may see a city vehicle parked at a Stewart's or something that it may not be inappropriate for it to be there. But it's, they're not doing their shopping like for the week.
And it's
Yes.
clear about that, these incidental personal uses must be minimized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
it
clear
talks
about-
about the issue of public perception of
Right.
appropriate use as a concern.
I just got a couple I'm not saying anywhere people would do this, I just want that out there, I'm not saying any of our people would do this, I'm just thinking 5-10 years down the road, this is where I'm thinking when I'm asking these questions. How do we assure that they're not putting family members in the car? How do we?
If that's observed, or I would kind of be on a complaint base.
How about if we're gonna have like a take-home car thing, that maybe we have to have some type of monitoring, whether it's an in-car camera or
GPS.
GPS, so we can monitor where they're going for accountability.
Yeah.
I'm not big, I had a take-home car, so I completely get this and I understand, but we had to keep it within our jurisdiction. We're now talking about 2 of them going outside the jurisdiction of what they're covering, you know what I'm saying? Which, I guess, Dave, I can argue with you that because of our bus line, he's really kind of into his jurisdiction. We gave a waiver, part of the waiver intent now with the vehicle with the fire chief, but we also have an assistant fire chief who lives closer, who, if he comes in on call back, could potentially grab the vehicle as well to go to the scene. So I'm just trying to think, encompass, I think we have to have something in there where it's got a GPS on them. And it may not be a bad idea to have GPS on all the fleet, because actually it can, when you talk about risk liability and stuff in insurance companies, because, so, but, like family members, how we know they're not doing that, and Yeah, I just, and I think I missed it, Greg, but then again, I think I just saw it in here that says policy reviews and adjustments are approved by city administrator and the city council, is that correct?
Yeah, if we wanted to, let's say
So,
the
like, we
council
wanna
adopted
add-
the policy, wanted to
add
change, yeah.
Additional,
So we wanna add, like, say DPW director takes one home. That would be, you'd have to come to the council to get permission to add that into this policy.
Right, they would come to me, discuss it, and if I thought, oh, that's something we should consider, I would approve that, and then we bring it to the council for consideration to
So
change the policy.
my hang up right now, my only hang up is I think we need to try to come up with some way to be able to monitor these vehicles if they wanna take them home. But I think that's also a good thing. I mean, I know some of it's gonna end up getting into a union if we say all the vehicles. Probably have to discuss it with the union, but I don't think it's I worked on an ambulance company that we had it so that they knew when our lights were on, our siren was on, our brakes were, when we hit our brakes, when we did this. And it actually cleared one of our drivers when they were in a car accident. So, I mean, I think it's worthwhile to look into a bigger program like that, but I'm just thinking if we're going to take this outside the jurisdiction, then we should have to have a way to see where this vehicle's going.
So GPS tracker, you think would
Yeah.
satisfy what you were thinking of? We
Right.
have those on a lot of our DPW vehicles that we use regularly. Obviously, we don't have any DPW employees taking them home, but the police, while it's a separate, it's not in the same tracking system, I believe they have a way to track most of their vehicles that have their computer, equipment in them. Obviously, they have cameras inside as well. I don't believe the fire department has any GPS tracking that I'm aware of, ability at this point. Buses do.
Right.
Day hoteling is, SUV does not.
And I think we
But it
should
could be
have it
added.
on there too.
so would you, in terms of moving forward with this particular policy, would you want those included, this?
I would like to put in there that we're going to equip them with them,
Mhm.
so that everybody knows. I'm willing to give a trial basis and a shot with this.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm hesitant, but I think it's,
Mhm.
The other thing I wanted to say is there have been multiple times where the GPS has saved our tails, where people call and say that our guys are speeding, or they're in a location that they weren't, and they mistook a school district vehicle over our vehicles.
Yeah.
It has been a very, very good tool for us to prove that we weren't doing something that someone said we were.
Yeah,
So this,
yeah, I
I'd
don't
actually.
want,
that's to your point,
expand-
right?
yeah, it's,
I like to expand the GPS into all my vehicles,
Yeah.
since we have some that don't have them.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying, yeah, that's what I'm saying. None of this is punitive, it shouldn't be used
yeah,
as punitive,
no,
it's more as
but
a
to your
clear.
point, right,
The more I'm looking at it, like insurance and stuff like that, because now you're having two vehicles that are on the road more
yeah.
and a potential of a hazard because, so.
So should we say if we include those conditions that we then move this to discussion for the council?
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, I think, you look at the operational.
Are the GPS trackers, are they expensive?
I don't know.
I'm not sure what they are right now, but they're not
I wouldn't think so.
exorbitant.
And then where does the information get stored?
We have a program, this DPW is called True Fleet, and it's stored on their website as part of our, cost for having GPS in each vehicle.
Yeah, we might make sense to look at, is there a system that could be unified across city departments?
That's what I was
The
gonna.
police department has a different way of tracking than DPW does, different from OPT buses.
Mhm.
Maybe there can be one eventually, not right away, but.
Right, because if we already have a computer system that tracks it, if this could be added to it, that might be a more efficient way of doing it.
Yeah.
What about the gas for these vehicles? Where do they get gas?
Where the city has, we would expect them to be filling up in the cities, is Marauder, we're typically
Yeah, they're
going to
contracted
now,
with
everyone, yeah.
Does that have like a mileage thing? You gotta type in your mileage
Mhm.
to get, for all of our vehicles, for all the city vehicles?
So what you do is when you go to the gas station, you fill your vehicle, you got a card for each vehicle, put the card in, ask for your PIN, each one of us have our own PIN, you plug your PIN in, and then ask for the odometer reading when you plug it in. And then when done filling your vehicle, prints out a receipt. We put on the receipt what vehicle it goes to, and who the person was that, got the gas, and then we turn that into purchasing.
Thank you.
I just think with having a program like this, you gotta be able to track mileage and where it's going. And GPS would help with that, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, under operational guidelines, it's like halfway down page 2 of 3. Number 3, vehicle maintenance and fuel. It says city vehicles must be refueled and maintained per city fleet policies, and the city will track fuel usage and mileage for auditing purposes. That might be, we just modify that section to add in the GPS.
Okay, that's what we're
Thank
doing.
you.
I think we can put it in there.
Yep,
Thank you.
sounds good.
And I don't believe the unions have to get involved, this is not a,
Okay.
Right.
condition of
Labor.
employment.
Yeah,
Okay.
great. So we'll move that, I'd like to have that as a discussion agenda, just to have
Mhm.
everybody weigh in on it.
Yeah.
Because it's much more full than the last time we took a look at this.
Yeah, this is more of a policy than the old one. The old
Yeah.
one just said, okay, you can take it. This one's more like, no, you need to follow
Very
X, Y, and
fairly,
Z. This is
right.
what we expect out of
It's
you.
much more. Okay, so we'll move that to discussion, and then our next item is the standard workday resolution for an elected official, and this is for Councilmember Lepari Shu. And this has to do with the retirement eligibility.
Yeah. Carrie or Ginny, one of you want to explain that, how that came about, or?
For reporting purposes, when anybody is a member of the New York State retirement system, you have to report their number of days worked in the month and also their money, their pensionable earnings within the month. And with elected officials, because they do not participate in the timekeeping system, they have to do what's called a record of activities to determine what their standard workday is for that particular month. And it's based on a 180-day sample. And then each year, they can recertify saying that nothing has changed, or they can submit a new records of activity, and we can recalculate every year if need be. But normally, we do it for their 4-year period, their 4-year term, and this is required for any person within the retirement system that does not participate in the timekeeping system.
So a certain category. In terms of what's expected from council, is it a 30-day
You need to-
posting?
Yeah, you
correct?
need to approve the motion.
Mm-hmm, okay,
And then the city clerk is required to post it publicly for 30 days.
okay, so that's where the 30 days.
After that 30-day period, then I need to certify it with the retirement system that we met all of the regulations.
Okay. So I'm gonna just move this item to, unless there's any questions or, follow-up. I'd just like to move this to the consent agenda, just because it's very straightforward.
Could I ask just, on that one, the previous take-home vehicle policy, do you want me to include a revised draft, or just include this draft and talk about it more without a motion to approve anything at this council meeting? Have discussion and then bring it back to the next one, or what I could do is revise it
I
as
don't
you
want to
suggest.
overstep, but I would just include it, and then we can maybe have the resolution.
I think that's right.
To have a motion to approve.
That's exactly what I think.
Okay.
I would include our discussion, what we just mentioned, and then I think we could vote on it, right?
Okay. Thanks.
I don't think we need to go back.
Okay.
Okay, so our next update, our next item is an update to the personnel manual about the sick leave. And this is about placing in a section to authorize employees to voluntarily donate accumulated sick leave or vacation leave to another full-time city employee.
So the council recently approved an MOA with CSEA that would, if the CSEA ratifies that, which they'll vote on within a week or so, I believe, that would modify their sick leave section of their contract, which in their case, the sick bank is bankrupt. And that would update their sick leave language to be something very similar, the same thing, essentially, allowing that donation or receipt of a donated time for people who have no sick time left. This would be doing the same thing with the admin manual. So it would, essentially, if somebody, whether they're in, let's say someone in the CSEA, if they were to ratify that MOA and the council were to pass the admin manual revision we're proposing, if someone in the CSEA had no sick time left and they had, within the threshold that we define, which is up to 2 weeks of other leave accruals, like, so let's say they have less than 2 weeks of vacation or any other accruals on their books, they could make an application or request for donation. And they do that through the HR department. HR would then put out a message to other employees who are in one of these units that's approved this, who could then, without knowing the details of any illness or anything like that, or even who it is, they could decide to voluntarily donate some of their sick leave accrual or vacation accrual, which would then go to the employee in need and be converted to sick time. So that, I couldn't donate my vacation time to Ginny to take a vacation, but I could theoretically donate to an employee who could then use it as sick time if they had a need. And who determines the need? It would be a doctor's note that says that this person has whatever it is, and it doesn't matter, it's not communicated to employees, but HR would have that note on file. This is okay, they have a qualifying whatever, it is qualifying for use of sick time, they're out of sick time, so they're requesting a donation. So whoever's donating doesn't really need to know, doesn't know any of the details, don't even know who it is, but they would know, they would have the assurance from HR that it is a valid, need. So then they can decide, well, I have plenty of sick time and I want to help out a fellow employee. So it's sort of an on-demand sick bank, rather than having a real bank that you donate to periodically and it builds up, and then there's a board that reviews it, a board of your peers that reviews the details of your issue, whatever it may be, and decides whether or not it's qualifying. In this case, it's all done, through HR and the doctor, and then people have the opportunity to donate. And we haven't had the ability to donate across, CSEA to admin or admin to CSEA or any other union in the past. We're not talking about the fire and police unions at this point. I mean, that could be something that could be modified in the future. It hasn't been discussed with them. This came out of the fact that the CSEA sick bank was, needed to be fixed or, in this case, replaced.
Can the person in need request it from their fellow workers, if they wanted to?
There's nothing to stop, people having personal conversations with each other, and that could happen.
Okay.
We're just obviously not going to
I think that would be the
somebody.
most obvious way of getting it.
But to formally, kick off the process, they do have to go through HR so that we can document that their accruals, they meet the minimum requirements to be able to request. And then I suppose they could go to their, because employees differ, who's sharing what level of information with their coworkers and all that.
Okay.
That's up to them.
And so my question was about the fact that New York State just passed a paid leave, something like 20 weeks, no, not that can't be right, 12 weeks, I think, of paid leave for New York State employees. And that wouldn't make any impact on this.
I'm not aware of that having an
This
impact
is
on
just more
the
about,
city at this point. I don't know.
Was that for
Right.
state employees or?
yeah,
all
yes,
State employees?
yes, it was for state employees, so I guess that wouldn't really.
I saw something
new-
about that, but I
it's
don't
just-
remember.
Yes,
It
it's
was-
just been a new program that New York State's rolled out.
So that's the one piece of it,
And this is really for personnel or employees who have maxed out whatever they've been given, and this is a chance for them to get additional. That's really the purpose of it, right? They've kind of moved past what they've had.
maxed out as far as,
Yeah.
they have none left. They've
Right.
used all their available sick
Right,
time.
their sick days are
Yeah, they have
away,
additional.
and so they need extra. That's really what it's for, right?
Yeah, and obviously I've included in here the relevant pages from the admin manual. You see the highlights, what's changing.
Yeah, I was curious about what's highlighted here. So those are the changes that have been made.
Yeah, so as we go down through, the first section that's highlighted is actually updating and including the same definition of what immediate family is. Like previously, it didn't really define that well in this, and it was a similar issue in the CSEA contract. We've updated that with that MOA, and so we would use the same definition. And we also clarified that cover personnel may use sick leave for personal visits to a healthcare professional. So a doctor's visit, you might not be sick, but you're going to the doctor for an annual checkup. It's clarifying that that's something that you can use sick leave accruals for, which was the case before, but I think we just clarified the terminology, healthcare professional, with some examples, doctor, dentist, etc. Going down a couple pages further, that's where the leave time donation section is added, as I described. There is a limit to how much donated leave time one may receive in a year. And then the other section is parenting leave. So we did not have really any paid parenting leave. And this wouldn't create a separate leave accrual. It would just be allowing, I'll just read it real quick, I think that makes sense. Employees shall be entitled up to 8 calendar weeks of parenting leave immediately following the birth or adoption of a child without requiring a doctor's certificate. Parenting leave may be extended up to a maximum of 12 calendar weeks upon submission of a doctor's certificate attesting to the necessity of continued leave from employment. Employees shall use any accrued sick, vacation, personal, or holiday leave during parenting leave. So if they have accruals, they can use that for parenting leave. You know, they're not necessarily sick, they had a child. And then, so if you look at the donation, you know, couple the two together, if someone had no sick time available or not enough, they could theoretically request donations, and their coworkers could donate time to them to be used as sick time for parenting. So it kind of addresses those two things, and that's, you know, matches what we've done with CSEA, or what we're trying to do with CSEA. Anything, questions on that?
No, I was just curious about this new New York State, if that would have any impact, but and I was curious about the highlighted portions of but you clarified that. So. Okay, so I just propose moving that just to the consent
Yeah,
agenda.
okay.
Okay.
You might want to mention it though.
Yes. That the personnel manual has been updated, yeah. Okay, so the last item here for tonight has to do with the occupancy tax. So if we want to review that a little bit. This is in regards to having the city of Oneonta begin to impose its own occupancy tax, if I can say that word smoothly.
So this is similar to the county's bed tax, right?
Mhm.
So it'd be, what was it, 6%?
Yes,
On
so it's for
hotels, motels, Airbnb, that kind of
short-term
thing.
rentals like
So
Airbnb,
there's
yeah.
summer baseball camp and all that.
Right, the 6% is what Otsego County charges now. The city could establish with state legislature authority to allow us to establish an occupancy tax, and we can then establish it at whatever percentage, you know, the council desired. 6% is what Otsego County is doing.
So what would that mean for, there's not a lot of hotels or motels in the city though that have, you know, people who are on the baseball families and stuff. It's mostly the houses, right?
I mean,
Airbnb.
there's
Airbnb, yeah, it's mostly that, but
The
it's,
Hampton Inn
but we
and
don't have,
the Marks.
we don't have a lot
Hotel.
of, I'm saying we don't have a lot, there's some, but not a lot. So it'd be mostly on the individual landlords, they would have to collect the money.
Well, there's a new New York State law that requires booking platforms, Airbnb, VRBO, all of them. Or if you don't use a booking platform, if you're an individual, you're doing it completely on your own, then it's your responsibility. So they have to collect that and remit it to the county, pay it to the county, or in this case, to the city.
So Airbnb is
Mhm.
required to,
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
it's
where
not
it
on
would be
the-
collected.
that's right,
Okay.
exactly.
That was, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that would be
Transfer.
difficult to,
Yeah,
you know, if you just have one or two units to collect that would be hard. So, What about the estimate? I saw there was an estimate, which seemed pretty high to me.
Well, the estimate's based on actual collection in the city of Oneonta by the county. So the county has their 6% occupancy tax. In 2023, there were 42 properties in the city that they collected occupancy tax from, and they collected a total of $397,000. So that's a real number. So if we duplicated that, theoretically, in 2023, we would have collected the same amount.
Right. As long as it doesn't chase them away. There is that too.
Yeah.
So this would this be in addition to the county tax?
Yes.
So you
Just to clarify.
proposing 6%, 3%, 2%?
I think that's certainly up for discussion. When you look at the counties at 6%, that's why we think 6. Looking at, maybe a good example is to look at some other communities. So
Yeah.
that there's the attachment. What I did there, with the color coding, I just highlighted. So in the city of Ithaca is within the county of Tompkins. Westchester's 3%. The city of Geneva is 3%, and the county of Ontario and Seneca, which interestingly goes through the city of Geneva. So they're in 2 counties, are also 3%. I don't know how that works, but. And there are more, throughout the state. I just included some examples. There's a link there that you can click on. It takes you to the New York State tax law section where you can read through and see all the different counties, towns, villages, cities that have imposed, and see what that is.
So just based on the data here, it looks like the towns, cities, villages, they generally match the county in terms of percentage, generally. There's a few exceptions.
Yeah, and if you look further, perhaps I don't know if that trend will
Yeah,
across all
if
of
that
them.
pattern persists, but right here, that seems to be the case.
So I don't know if this really applies, but when New York City imposed an occupancy tax on hotels,
Yeah.
this was actually before Airbnb was a thing. It did hurt tourism for a couple of years, but eventually it bounced back.
Yeah.
So the only concern I have is if we're imposing a new tax, what will that do for the people like who mainly deal with the baseball families? And would they go somewhere else, or would they just pay it? And there's no way of knowing the answer to that. And I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility. It
Yeah.
could hurt some of the property owners.
Well, I think they couldn't probably go elsewhere. They're in close proximity to Cooperstown, and in particular to the Dream. So I mean, it's a captive audience, I would argue.
Yeah, I'm not arguing one way or the other. I'm
Yeah.
just throwing that out there that that is a possibility.
Yeah.
I think we can sit there and say, yes, this is a good idea, but I
I
think the
couldn't
council
agree more,
has to
sorry.
have the bigger discussion of how much we want to start it out as.
Oh, definitely.
So I
Absolutely.
mean,
The
I mean-
6% is what the county is obviously
Right.
providing, so. It's a
Would it be
discussion.
possible to ask some of the people who have these rentals what they think?
they'd probably think the same thing as when we did it at the county.
I mean, what, yeah,
And what did they say?
They weren't happy, but,
no, but,
because it's, you got, I mean, like you said, you're gonna have the argument of, well, we're hurt business. But you also have the argument of, well, we're also trying to help because you're getting influx of people and
Yeah.
the taxes are services that we're offering.
yeah,
We have to try to offset them both. I mean, the city of Oneonta is kind of stuck in a hard spot right now. I keep saying it, we're too big to be small, too small to be big, but somehow we gotta get ourselves over the hump to get to the next stage,
Yeah. Well,
yes, yeah.
on the one hand, we need money. Here's some money that we might be able to get. And on the other hand, will we be hurting the people that, have,
But-
not the people who are paying it, but the people whose property are affected?
No, I get that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's the bigger question for the council. The answer
Yeah,
is what to start it out at.
Right.
Or if the council even wants to do it. I mean, all we're doing is passing it up saying, hey, here's an idea. What do you guys think? What should we start at? Let's have the conversation. It's a conversation starter.
Mhm.
I mean,
But it is shocking, I think, that this city has not done this before. Is that a question, comment?
We have always been told historically that the city was not allowed to do it. So
And And is that a new development under Hochul, or is this something that's been just on the books, but?
My understanding is that cities and counties can do it, but not villages. Is that,
I saw on the tax laws there are villages and towns that have it as well.
there are villages and towns, okay.
So, yeah. I didn't look close, I was looking at cities because I was looking at examples of cities and counties.
Mhm.
But the difference, recently, last year, the law that was passed, at the state level, makes it easier, that really requires all these booking platforms that are Airbnb and all that to pay the counties directly. So it makes it easier for counties or cities, whoever is imposing this tax, to collect from them. That's something that the hotel industry,
Right.
very much supported because they felt there was an inequity there where hotels were paying at motels, but Airbnbs were kind of
Right,
Mhm.
sliding under the radar.
yep,
So now it's going to be easier to
right,
equitably apply the occupancy tax and, get the income, the revenue
Yeah.
from everybody
Makes
that's
sense.
doing
Yeah.
these short-term overnight stays.
And it's going to put in an area where, if the council does approve this, we would like to discuss with the county an intermunicipal agreement, so they collect it on our behalf.
uh-huh,
Mhm.
So when they have to pay the county share, they also pay the city share at the same time. So then the county would distribute the city share to us, just like we do with sales tax.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, in terms of a time, yes, I see that. I just was curious about a timeline in terms of, I was just looking in terms of notes for consideration, that the city would need to request state representatives to draft legislation that would then be passed by the state legislature, and then the city then must enact a local law to implement an occupancy tax, and then this local law would need to be enacted every few years, every 3 years.
Right, so
So-
I couldn't tell you exactly when, if the council approved it on Tuesday, what is the timeline for the state to
Yeah.
approve it? I guess it's up to the state. We'd have to get some feedback from Senator Obracher or somebody Miller.
Right.
I think they would bring forward and sponsor something, and it would go through the legislative
Maybe.
process. And so their next legislative session, perhaps. When I looked at Ithaca's, I looked because they had either just implemented it or updated it in the last few years. So I kind of looked at their timeline, and it looked like it took a little less than a year, maybe about a year. I think they started a conversation in February, and by the next January it was implemented. So whether it could be sooner than that, I don't know.
Yeah,
That
But
sounds
yeah,
like
what-
one of the things that would be in the big ugly at the end of the session.
Yeah. Once the state legislature has approved it, then the city has to do their own local law process. So,
I see your note, Jenny, about the city would then need to determine and implement an administrative process to collect the occupancy tax. This could be potentially done in partnership with Otsego County. I see that point,
yeah. And, the county and the city already have a relationship.
yeah. Right.
Our code office works with the county treasurer to provide, make sure that the county has a registry of what properties they need to collect occupancy tax from. And the city would be using the same registry. And our city code office has short-term rentals that have to register, so they're already exchanging information. So I think it makes sense that partnership would just expand a little bit, take advantage of what the county's already doing as far as the collection.
Yeah. So there's already something in place for all of this anyway, so it would just mean the city
Yeah,
negotiating with the
adding to it,
county,
yeah.
right? Okay.
And Dave Ramsey mentioned that possibly they could pass some legislation by July 1st.
It would be up to the state process, yeah. Typically, they have the session where they're approving the budget and all that. I mean, if it would be done in that session, I just don't know what their timeline is. I mean, drafting of legislation doesn't seem to me like it would be very onerous, because most of these tax laws, if you look, are for each municipality has their own. They're almost the same. Like the boilerplate language is the same. What varies is what percentage, and some of them have, as you see in the notes on that color-coded spreadsheet, like some of them have a stipulation that a certain, so if they're charging 5%, 1% of that is going to a certain fund or something like that. Some of them, the city of Binghamton, for example, says that whatever they collect through this occupancy tax is just going to their general fund, and then the council decides how to use it from there. So it varies pretty widely how people use it. A lot of them are, focused on tourism and marketing and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right, I don't think we should have any restrictions on it. If we do it, it should go into the general fund.
That would be my recommendation.
Would it?
Right.
Because the
It
council
doesn't make,
can, any excess money that we end up receiving, the council
thing is like,
Although-
sometimes they'll say it's gotta go for promoting tourism or something. I don't think we should do any of that.
Well, just to follow up on Berg's point, what looks like from what has been provided here, that there's general fund and then different allocations after the general fund.
Yeah, and my recommendation would be that it's just for the general fund.
Uh-huh.
And then we can, case by case, do something if the council deems necessary.
So any lawful purpose, which is what Binghamton has. Or no, I'm sorry, Beacon. And Binghamton.
But I think this
The
is an
simpler you
excellent-
make it, the better. You know, because it's the money's fungible, you can spend it however you want, you know, don't put restrictions on it. If we do it, I would advise no restrictions. It's just general fund.
We're talking about if you were to move forward, what would the time frame be? And then also, where would the money that was generated, where would that go in terms of within the city?
Yeah, and that spreadsheet that's got the color coding, you see some of the examples, some of them say, well, part of it's gonna go to the highway, like Otsego County has a highway equipment fund, they created 2% goes there out of the 6%, and the 4% goes to their general fund or whatever it does, yeah, general fund. Some of them just say, put it in the general fund, which is
No need to
completely
tie your
fine, and then the
hands,
council
in my
decides through
opinion.
its normal budget process how to spend it.
I think this is an excellent opportunity, and it's my recommendation to have the council seriously consider it.
Okay, so we'll have a discussion on Tuesday. Was there anything else, because you stepped out, did you have any questions?
No.
City sucks, tourist system.
All right, I think that's our last item, correct?
Adjournment.
Okay, so I propose then we adjourn at 6:03.